Hey everyone, we can't have a big story like this happen without talking to Neal Katyal. Neal is going to join us for an Instagram Live. I just got home from a show, a comedy show, and Neal is going to join us. I didn't even have time to grab my glasses. Hold on, maybe I can grab them. Hold on, 2 seconds, everybody. Obviously, huge news. I have my ring light on because what can I say? Huge news tonight with Donald Trump's indictment on, I understand, 7 counts. So let's get Neal on the horn. And there's Neal. Neal, hi.
Hello.
Wow.
How are you?
I mean, I'm good. I'm sorry I was rushing home because I was at a play with some friends. And as soon as I walked out, I heard the news. So I came right home, called you. You're nice enough to get on, but I know you don't have a lot of time, Neal. So let's just get to the story. So Donald Trump indicted on, I understand, 7 counts. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us what this means and what and the crime that he is going to be arrested for?
Yeah, so Katie, there's a lot we don't know. We know that Donald Trump has been indicted, which means it's the formal charges by the grand jury sought by prosecutor Jack Smith, the federal prosecutor against Donald Trump. We know those charges include conspiracy, willful retention of documents, obstruction of justice. We haven't seen the actual indictment, and that is because Justice Department rules and court rules are that an indictment is to be sealed until the defendant has a chance to see it in open court. And that proceeding is set forth for Tuesday. Now, there's a way in which the Justice Department or Donald Trump can move to try and unseal it earlier before that Tuesday proceeding. But, right now, what we have is some leaks about the indictment, and I suspect those leaks are coming from Donald Trump and his team. In fact, Trump confirmed on his, fake Twitter thing called Truth Social that he has in fact been indicted. So we know that. And so that's, I think it's 3 p.m. on Tuesday in Miami. Another thing we know is that this indictment is actually in Miami, in the Southern District of Florida, not in Washington, D.C., which is the place many thought the indictment would occur until, some recent chatter just a week ago. So this is all pretty new. Some people thought that Jack Smith would indict in D.C. because D.C. juries would tend to be very favorable to a case against Donald Trump. I think Jack Smith decided, I'm going to do this, as I think his whole career is, totally by the book. What's the place where most of the crimes occurred? And I think he decided that, yes, the taking of the documents, the stealing of the documents took place in D.C., but so many of the criminal acts, all the obstruction afterwards and lying about having the documents and sending his attorney out to say that the documents were turned over when they weren't and things like that, all of that took place in Florida. So what this tells me, this choice about what we call venue, where to try the case, I think Jack Smith is deciding the bulk of these crimes, what he really wants to focus on is not the initial stealing of the documents, but rather the willful retention and lying about it afterwards.
Explain that willful retention and lying about it, if you could, in a little more detail. And by the way, then we're going to talk about, but I just want to mention there are 2 Justice Department investigations that are going on. This is the classified documents that were found in Mar-a-Lago and not turned over. But there's also the Georgia case that is still pending as well. And then the New York case, which he has been charged for. But having said that, tell me about the retention of the documents and why that's what he's focused on.
Yeah, and before getting there, I want to put one other thing on the table for your viewers, which is also Jack Smith, the federal prosecutor, is looking at whether or not Trump should be guilty for January 6th and the violence there. And that part, we don't know anything about Smith's abuse. So that investigation's still ongoing.
But you have told me in the past, Neal, that was going to be harder to prove.
Correct. I think it's a harder, longer, more complicated case. And so what Smith has done here is he's brought one case about the stolen documents and the obstruction, but not the other. So what is that willful retention of documents and obstruction of justice? Basically, I think prosecutors understand sometimes people make mistakes. So you walk out with a document by mistake. It happens really rarely, Katie, I can tell you from serving as National Security Advisor at the Justice Department, but it does happen sometimes.
Right.
I think
Well, it happened with other presidents and Mike Pence, and it happened with Joe Biden, right?
Correct, exactly. So those things happen. And I think the way the Justice Department traditionally understands that, whether you're the president or just a low-level staffer, is, did you own up to the mistake? Did you facilitate the investigation? Did you play for Team America? Or were you kind of lying and obfuscating and covering your tracks? And if you do those things, you face an indictment. Here, what Jack Smith is saying is, look, the stealing of the documents is one thing, but the obstruction and lying afterwards, whether it's dress rehearsals to try and move the boxes when he's worried the FBI is going to raid his house, or whether it's maybe, as the recent news reports say, a pool that flooded the IT room to destroy the surveillance. I mean, who knows exactly what those incidents of obstruction are? Jack Smith has obviously concluded that there were incidents of obstruction. And so that's what's going to take this case and make it different from, as Katie, you said a moment ago, the Vice President Pence, or President Biden investigations.
It's interesting, Neal, because I also had my team playing Fox News for me and how they were reporting on this. And Fox News is basically saying that Donald Trump is being treated differently than Joe Biden and than Hillary Clinton was about her emails. And of course, this is sort of the right-wing response to these allegations against Donald Trump. They're also talking a lot about Joe Biden and LLCs and moving millions of dollars around, and Hunter Biden and Burisma. I mean, this is what, a lot of people in the country are hearing, believing, and perhaps getting ready to stand behind the former president. Can you, as a lawyer, put all of this into perspective for us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as a lawyer who often has sympathies for criminal defendants, and I think I can make a case for, almost anyone who's under indictment. But honestly, it's very hard to make a case defending Donald Trump, at least on that basis, Katie, because the idea that Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden did this is preposterous. Anyone who says this, make them show us where the obstruction of justice lay. Where was the lying to the federal investigators and all the obfuscation? And, did Joe Biden send a lawyer out to say everything is, that you want, I've provided and turned over, or anything like that? Of course not. So it's a false equivalence that they're seeking. So that's number one. The second point is, look, if they all believe this, and Trump believes that he's innocent, we have the most robust criminal justice system in the world operating in this country. And what Jack Smith is going to have to do, and he's going to have to do it in Florida, not DC. He could have charged in DC. He took the harder path of charging in Florida, and he's going to have to convince all 12 of the jurors that Trump is guilty. Any one juror who says, I don't think so, no conviction. That's number one. And he's got to do it under the highest standard in the law, what we call beyond a reasonable doubt. So that doesn't mean like, oh, I kind of think Trump is guilty, I'll vote to convict. It's got to be really ironclad. And so Trump will have every opportunity, and presumably he'll have good defense counsel to make these arguments, available to say, I'm being treated unfairly. Good luck with that is my advice to him. I think the Justice Department every day of every week would have charged him and tried him for this. And the only way in which Donald Trump is being treated differently, Katie, is that he's got to wait for this indictment, and he got to blather on about how unfair the investigation was and so on. Because I can assure you, if it were anyone else, this person would have been indicted long ago. I mean, what kind of message would it send to our spies in the field, to our allies who give us this information, this very sensitive national security information, if we just say, oh yeah, take it home, maybe show it to other people, don't worry about it? Of course not.
Hey, Neil, I know you have to go in a minute, but you probably read, and just tell me, Katie, I gotta go, but you probably read Trump's statement on Truth Social. The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I've been indicted seemingly over the boxes hoax, even though Joe Biden had 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C., with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette and which is secured by only a garage door that is paper thin and open much of the time. I've been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. I never thought it was possible that such a thing could happen to a former president of the United States who received far more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country and is currently leading by far all candidates, both Democrat and Republican, in the polls of the 2024 presidential election. All caps, I am an innocent man. This is indeed a dark day for the United States of America. We're a country in serious and rapid decline, but together we will make America great again.
Yeah. So if that's his defense, I guess good luck with that. I mean, it's just so preposterous. I mean, maybe the most important thing, Katie, is Trump is not being indicted for boxes. You can have all the boxes you want. It's a question of what's in the boxes, okay? If it's classified and sensitive national security information, no, you don't get to take the boxes out. We're not in third grade. It's not yours just because it was yours at one point. You know, these are things that belong to the United States government.
But weren't some of the documents in the Biden garage and that Mike Pence had, and I think even Bill Clinton, I think, weren't they some of those classified materials,
So I
Neil?
think that there was one document found with Pence and I think a couple with Biden. And again, this is my main point, which is this is not an investigation. And Jack Smith, by choosing to indict in Florida, is signaling that. It's not about the initial mistake as of taking the documents as much as it is about the lying and obstruction afterwards. And prosecutors, and I've been saying this now for many months, including with you before, Katie, prosecutors can't tolerate a world in which people commit crimes and then lie about and hinder the investigation afterwards. They can let crimes go. They do so every day. You know, it's like the simplest thing in the world. You're driving, you know, over 55, you get pulled over. If you're like indignant about it with the cop and lie and say, I wasn't doing it, that's the surest way to a ticket. If you say, I'm super sorry, I did it wrong, you know, that's a different matter because that's the way in which our law enforcement system operates. It operates with good faith of people and people owning up to their mistakes, which is something Donald Trump has never been able to do his whole life.
In closing, if he's convicted, can he run for president?
So it's a difficult question in the law. It's never been tested because we've never had a former president who's under indictment. My view is if he's been convicted, he loses the ability to vote because we have felon disenfranchisement laws. And if you lose the ability to vote, you lose the ability to be voted for. And so it would eliminate his ability to run for office.
But as you said, it hasn't been tested. Is it possible? Because the Constitution is pretty, I don't know, vague about this or subject to interpretation, Neil?
Right. So the Constitution itself doesn't say anything one way or another. So you have to read and imply from the structure of the Constitution this principle. I think that's the best reading, but you know, it's certainly something that could be litigated in court.
And it's no surprise, and this is not your bailiwick, but it is already being, no surprise, being intensely politicized.
Yeah. And I think Donald Trump sent out a fundraiser email within a few minutes after being indicted. You know, I think I would just caution everyone on both sides. You know, this is now a really solemn, serious legal proceeding. No one should take joy in this moment. It's a sad moment for the country. It's not sad because Trump is being somehow targeted or treated unfairly, but it's sad because I think it underscores the extreme damage that Donald Trump has done to the institution of the presidency and to this country as a whole.
But perhaps it's not sad if our system is set up to hold people accountable, even the most powerful people in the land.
Correct. I mean, the essence of what America is, it's why my parents came to this country, is no person is above the law. That is the most foundational principle of our republic. Charges like tonight underscore that. Donald Trump will have every opportunity to prove why those charges are wrong. If his defense looks like at what it is tonight, he's going to almost certain conviction. So with that, I got to go. But
Thanks,
Katie, it's lovely to
Neal,
see
as
you.
always. I'll
Okay,
see you soon.
I'll see
Thanks,
you tomorrow.
everybody. Good
Okay,
night. Good
bye-bye.
night. Bye.